What about the USS Liberty? 2 years ago that they did declassify the NSA intercepts, that Israel was not being honest about why they attacked that ship.
Well, let me tell you this about the Liberty. I was in the Navy. I was not in the Navy at the time that it happened. I can tell you categorically, okay, from my knowledge of the people who were involved at the time in the Israeli Navy, categorically, and you can see that I'm not somebody who goes out to defend Israel. Categorically, this was an accident. Now, there was a lot of screw-ups on the way. I have spoken to many people of the Liberty. I have said this again and again. There was an ambassador from Lebanon, an American ambassador in Lebanon, who said, and he was making a speech, and I was on the phone. I was on a remote, contact, and he said that he personally heard Israeli pilots talking to each other and saying that they recognized or they notified or they saw the flag that was being waved and that it's an American ship, and they said, doesn't matter, let's go attack anyway. And then I turned to him and I spoke to him in Hebrew, and he did not respond because he said he doesn't understand Hebrew. So I asked him, did you hear their voices saying that? Because you think the Israeli pilots were talking English just for you? And he kind of backed off, and he said, no, I read it in the transcripts. I said, but you just said you heard them in your own ears. And it went on and on. There's a lot of fabrication going on about that particular piece, but I can tell you categorically, knowing the people. I also know that the head of the Israeli Navy at the time was not found anywhere, and everybody was looking for him because they had the skunk on the radars, a skunk being an unidentified ship, and he was nowhere to be had because he was having an affair in the middle of the war. So, not everybody came out smelling well from that, but that was not a deliberate act. And the mistakes were, colossal.
Well, I've interviewed the admirals, and they're all dead now, but those interviews are there. And they said that when they got on the phone to McNamara and said, we're sending ships to defend, McNamara said, no, you're not to, and they refused his order. And then LBJ came on and said, look, that ship's going to the GD bottom, and that basically it was a pre-done deal to blame it on Egypt. But you're saying that isn't the deal.
No, I'm saying no. You're mixing two things. The fact that there was a cover-up after that, and that American ships or forces were not sent to aid, and all that is accurate. I don't know about that. I can't say to that anything. I can only say that the attack on the ship itself was not a deliberate act by the Israeli Navy or the Israeli Air Force. And nobody who fired at any point has known or admitted to know that it was an
Well, how
American.
could torpedo boats not see an American flag?
Well, because by the time the torpedo boats arrived, you're talking about there was smoke on board already. They called in the numbers that were on the side. They did not see the flag because the flag was being waved towards the planes. Now, this is all I can tell you. I mean, I can't get into a lot of detail about it because of the fact that I have not been there. But I know the people that were involved. And and on a personal level, this is completely on a personal level, I can vouch for every one of them, knowing that none of the people I know would have opened fire on an American ship. Now, take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, well, from my research, it looks like a live-action Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, again, I'm not... No, actually not. Now, where I find it hard to fathom, what I do find hard to fathom is the fact that the airplanes, the planes did not see the flag. Now, I don't know. Now, maybe a pilot was strafing and he saw the flag at the last minute and he doesn't want to admit it. That could have been the case. I don't know. I've seen the footage from the machine gun cameras, right? And when it passes over, you don't see any flag at that point. And in fact, that is available in the Israeli Navy book. I have a copy. No, I know. I've seen the footage on television, and it's gray gun pod camera, and
so
you see a big black blob. But his eyes weren't shooting black and white film.
Absolutely, I can't argue with that. So that's what I'm saying. I can tell you from the Navy standpoint, the people who were on board and were involved from the Navy side did not know what they were firing.
Okay, well, that's your take on it. I don't want to burn up all of our time.
No.
Separately, you've written 2 books. And I remember one account about the Israelis, submarine jacking in to a Libyan communications facility and sending out false flag info that then got Reagan to send in the aardvarks and blow up Gaddafi's tents. Break that down for us and talk about your books.
Well, okay, this was written in The Other Side of Deception, which is my second non-fictional book. And I described there what happened was there were Mossad units with the special forces that came in and installed a bounce-off device, which is kind of like it's a communication system that you can broadcast to it from some location. It then takes the communication that you've sent to it and will bounce it off as if it's coming from a source very close to where it's located. In fact, they put it in an apartment building, which was a block and a half or 2 blocks away, don't remember exactly, from the Libyan high command. And they broadcast information in code that was then broken to say that they basically took responsibility, that the Libyans put responsibility on the Libyans for the Label attack where an American serviceman was killed. And that, called in itself as a terrorist attack against American forces, brought about the attack by Reagan, who called in an air attack on Libya that killed Gaddafi's daughter, I think, one of his children or something.
So that is a frame-up,
yes.
And so when you were in the Mossad, you had knowledge of that?
Yes, yes. And this is the information that I'm talking about.
Now, Israel cannot be happy that you're talking about that.
They never were. Well, Israel's not happy about anything I say. The point is, I don't wave flags. When I talk about these things, I talk about either what I know.
No, I understand. It sounds like you're saying you're a political atheist. What are some other interests? I mean, what made you get upset with the Mossad and critical? I mean, what are some of the other misdeeds?
Well, what got me, I'm not a political atheist. I have a left leaning, and I admit that. And I think the Palestinians should have a state.
Well, by political, I mean atheist, I mean you just try to analyze the facts you see. Yes,
I do. My main concern with the Mossad, and my main problem with the Mossad, was the fact that the Mossad is a very important entity in the protection of the State of Israel. And what it should do is gather information, analyze it to the best of its ability, put it into the process of, into the rest of the information gathering system, and provide the leaders of the state the ability to make a decision which is based on reality and data. The information, the Mossad had a tendency to feel that, politicians come and go. We can't rely on them to make the proper decisions, so therefore we will tailor the information in a way that will cause about the results that we call for. You can't trust the Arabs. There's never going to be peace. The Palestinians have no intention.
And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, all intelligence agencies have been caught doing that.
Absolutely. But, not being a member of others, I can't complain about them. And I don't feel a responsibility that I need to.
What type of missions did you mainly run?
Mainly recruiting of agents the difference between a case officer and an agent, with a lot of people mix it up. A case officer is a person who works in the field and makes contact with people of the enemy, turns them, and then sends them back into their own countries to gather information for you. That's what a case officer does, and that was my
So
job.
You were like a spy master.
Absolutely, yes. Well, yeah, in a way. It's more kind of a handler. And I was more on the side of the actual recruiting.
And that's a point you made in the Washington Post, that guaranteed Israeli intelligence is all over Turkey. They had people on probably all those ships.
No question about that. In fact, the question that arises today about this, this screw-up is which intelligence was wrong here. If the Mossad did not provide the intelligence to the naval intelligence, then it's Mossad's fault.
Well, stay there. Let's talk about that when we come back, and we'll take some phone calls with our guest.